The 9/12 Project, when I introduced it, I said, this is yours. Do with it what you want. You just need to get together and know you're not alone. Does anyone believe in divine providence anymore? I know Ronald Reagan did. I know George Washington did. I know Abraham Lincoln did. Reagan said, for whatever reason, God made America free, and he wasn't throwing cliches out when he said once a country loses her freedom, those people will never get it back again. That if freedom is extinguished here in America, there is no place on the face of the earth for the world to run to. Do you think Russia and China are going to lead the world on what? The environment? You got Putin yesterday taking pictures of himself hunting whales. Yeah. How about human rights? You have China stacking people up like sardines in apartments above factories so they can work around the clock. You've got Iran, who's burying people up to their necks because they're homosexual. They're the leaders. We used to strive in this country to be a shining city on the hill. Well, our founders understood this. Back in the 1700s, George Whitefield, who you probably hadn't heard of, we talked about on this program. George Whitefield tried to bring the divided 13 colonies together. This was Benjamin Franklin. Join or die. Well, Whitefield, he preached his father Abraham's sermon. The colonies didn't like each other. They didn't like each other before the Revolution. They were very much independent and separate entities. They did not want to join. They all had different agendas. Well, for 40 years, Whitefield traveled across this country to deliver a sermon to get those colonies to set aside their differences and unite on what they shared in common. It's the beginning of the melting pot, e pluribus unum. A thirst for freedom is what they wanted. What else are the goals?
I think that you need to step back a little bit further from that. The thing that brought these people together in February and April and September of last year, and again in March and April of this year, were three core values: fiscal responsibility, constitutionally limited government, and free markets. And we agree, I think every one of us at this table agrees on that. And then at the local level, we, at our organization, Tea Party Patriots, we encourage local groups to do what works best for them. So they might expand further, but we all agree on those three principles.
Okay. And there is also something else that I know, because I started the 9/12 Project, but Yvonne, you have taken that, and I don't have anything really to do with the 9/12 Project anymore. But there's also a sense that I think from people that it's not about politics, and the left keeps trying to make this about Republicans and everything else.
That's right.
I found it amazing what Trent Lott said. The last thing we need is any of these Tea Party people in here. We don't need another Jim DeMint. If we come, we have to get. If they come in, we have to co-opt them immediately. I mean, the Republican Party.
Right.
Is against you guys.
They still don't get it.
There's three steps here. We got to beat the Republicans, and then we got to beat the Democrats. But more important than November 2nd is November 3rd. And whether or not this community can stay cohesive and stay vigilant. You know, that you talk about the founders. They said you got to do that.
May I ask a question? I think the most important thing, and the most probably the most amazing thing I have seen in my lifetime in America. I have never seen more Americans talk about the Constitution, talk about the Founding Fathers. There is, if you look at the best-selling books on Amazon.com, you look at the books that have sold more than anything else, it's phenomenal, the wake-up that is happening. We are reawakening the American people to, you're not going to go back to the old system that you were in. Racism. We don't put up with it in Tea Party Patriots at all. We don't want it in NAACP. We don't want it in our movement. And if somebody comes to one of our events, we're going to tell them to leave. And we have stood up against Tea Party Express because they had a racist spokesperson who they stood by. And they have a history of standing by people who make racist comments. We're not going to stand with racists. We refuse to. We'll get their side of the story here on that in just a second. I agree with you. Any racism must be rejected. It will destroy us. It will destroy us.
You know, we formed the Federation, the National Tea Party Federation, as a result of the N-word epithets that were supposedly, allegedly shouted. It came out of that to push back on this narrative. And in fact, on the founding of the Federation, which is not speaking for the Tea Party, it's not a representative entity other than a group of like-minded people, about 400, 500,000 members, who actually reject violence, bigotry, racism, and specifically formed it in that context. I would say that I think it's very, very clear. It is messy when you work with federations and groups, as Jenny Beth knows, with 2,500 groups in the Tea Party Patriots. There are always going to be people who, as you said, are the nut jobs. But we work very, very hard, and certainly in the Federation, we work to denounce that and to renounce those people.
Where do you stand on violence?
Well, you gotta call these guys out. And what we did on April 15th, and we were dealing with this problem, our events are open to the public. We invite everybody that wants to be nonviolent, that wants to share these values. And what we had was the left threatening to crash our party. They called themselves Tea Party crashers. And all we could think to do is to say from the stage again and again and again, we won't tolerate racists, we won't tolerate haters. If you have a sign that we find offensive, I'm asking the community around you to politely ask you to leave. If you won't leave, I'm asking them to take a picture of you. We're going to post it on our website, and you can explain to your mother why you were holding that sign.
That's great.
And you know what? We didn't have any problems. And that's what's so beautiful about this community. Again, the left is trying to smear these good people because that's all they have left. They're not violent. They're not any of these things that they're saying.
We're not violent. You know where the violence has come from? We were in the office on 9/11 at Freedom Works getting ready for the 9/12 march, and we had to go out and evacuate because of a bomb threat that the mainstream media didn't cover.
I think we did.
In St. Louis, Kenneth Gladney has been attacked by unions. In Florida, Tea Party people have been attacked by the opposition, and the same thing in North Carolina. It's not happening on our side, it's happening from the other side.